This is the Louie T Network.
Draft Zone. Draft Zone.
Welcome, you are in the lab room.
Draft
I'm your host, Luke.
Zone.
Thank you for joining me here on the program 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. And we continue on with the Who's Next format. And up next are the Miami Dolphins in their 2014 NFL Draft. And so, for those of you who don't know how this works, again, Who's Next format during the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series simply means be the first to leave the comment in the comment section of this very video stating next and the team that you want to see next. So if you're first and you go down into the comment section and you say Packers next, Eagles next, Redskins next, we got next, Bucks next, you're the next team up. And so that's how this thing works. So gotta be fast, gotta be quick, and you gotta have all the components necessary. The team, name, and the phrase next. So 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series is where I grade every single player taken in the draft of X said team. Today we're talking Miami Dolphins. And I will give them a grade using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players will pan out. So I will break down the draft of the Miami Dolphins, give them a grade as an aggregate, and then we'll move on to the next team, whoever that may be. So let's get to the big board. Got my trusty handy-dandy pointer. I've got the big board for my assistants. Let's get to the draft in 2014 of the Miami Dolphins. So we go to the draft board and you look at the Dolphins, who held 8 picks in this draft. And this was an easy evaluation for the Dolphins in terms of what they were going to do with that first pick. Now, did we know they were going to select the player that they did? No, but we knew what was going to be offensive line. And so you start first round, 19th pick overall, offensive tackle out of Tennessee, Jawan James. And when this pick was made, it was one of those, you're smiling. You're like, okay, are they going to pick Suafilu? Are they going to pick Cyrus Kwanjo? What are they going to do? It's going to be offensive line. Who are they going to pick? And the commissioner says, Jawan James, tackle, Tennessee. And you go. And I looked around and I'm like, Jawan James? And I start flipping through pages of my book and I'm looking, and I see some notes and I go, okay, it's him. But again, I didn't have him as a first round pick. So I went back and I watched the tape. I'm like, what made the Dolphins make him their first round selection? And when you put on the tape, it's easy to see because I chose to go back and then I came back to the present day. I went back to 2012, took a look at the Georgia tape, and Georgia was loaded last year on defense with guys that are now in the National Football League. You got John Jenkins on the defensive line, that big space-eating defensive tackle. Of course, Jarvis Jones was the man in college football in 2012, and so they had those guys up there, and then Sean Williams was blitzing from the safety position. He ended up getting drafted in the National Football League. So there were plenty of guys to take a look at, and you wanted to see how they did. Ogletree also was on their defense. He was blitzing a lot. So you wanted to see how he held his own against this Georgia defense. I was expecting this defense to make some noise. So when I put on the tape of Georgia versus Tennessee in 2012, I was expecting Ja'Wuan James to struggle a bit. I mean, you're talking Jarvis Jones, John Jenkins, Sean Williams. I mean, Alec Ogletree. That Georgia defense was loaded in 2012. And they were blitzing all over the place. Jarvis Jones was lining up on that right side at times. John Jenkins was stunting, and he was having to block. John Jenkins sometimes was Ja'Wuan James. And so I said, there's definitely going to be some flaws detected in this game, if any, from last season. So let's watch this Georgia tape. And I watched that game, and what I heard from Jarvis Jones and John Jenkins and Sean Williams and Alec Ogletree was crickets. Nothing. I mean, those guys were put to sleep. Go ahead, read them a bedtime story, rock them to sleep, because they did absolutely nothing when they were up against Ja'Wuan James in that game. And so that was ultra impressive. Now, again, the tape was not pretty. There was nothing extravagant about what he was doing. It was just solid tape after solid tape after solid tape. I mean, the guy is a technician. He goes out and he does his job. Yeoman-like. You don't hear a word out of him. He could be better in the run game. I would love to see him be a little bit more physical in the run game. Maybe push some guys back a little bit more and get up underneath their pads and move them out of the way and make it easier for the back to gain yards when running to his side. But in the passing game, I mean, this guy's as stout as it gets. I mean, I was impressed with the way he was handling the rush of Georgia. Then I put on the tape of South Carolina. I thought he did a really good job against the South Carolina defense, and I was impressed once again. So I just said, I see what the Dolphins saw. They said, look, we need a right tackle. This guy is one of the better ones in college football. We feel really good about him. We're going to pick him at 19, and we're going to plug him, and we're going to play him day one. And I think they got themselves a really good football player in the form of Ja'Wuan James, offensive tackle out of Tennessee in the first round, 19th overall selection. Now, I can't say that I'm blown away by the pick. You know, and I can't say that I would have been blown away by anybody at 19 right here. I just don't know if anyone would have blown me away at this point in the first round. For the Dolphins, I'm speaking of. Maybe Xavier Su'a-Filo, because I'm just so high on that guy. But if Cyrus Kouandjio goes here, I don't think he gets a home run either. And so in the first round, 19th overall selection, tackle out of Tennessee, Ja'Wuan James for me is a triple. I like the pick. I think he's going to make a solid right tackle. I think he's going to do all the things you're looking for in terms of protecting Ryan Tannehill. But I'd like to see him be a little bit more explosive and tough in the run game. I'd like to see him be more assertive in the run game. Move guys out of the way. Clear out spaces for the running back to run. Seal the edge. I'd like to see him get to that second level and be a little bit more efficient in the running game. And so it's a three-bagger for Ja'Wuan James and the Miami Dolphins in the first round. You go to the second round, 63rd selection overall, wide receiver out of LSU, Jarvis Landry. And I'm not an LSU receiver guy. I'm just not. I don't like LSU receivers because I don't trust them. You know, the last 5 or 6 of those guys have been busts. Craig Buster Davis. Do you even know who that is? If you're a San Diego Chargers fan, you do. But for the rest of the guys, you probably don't know who Craig Buster Davis is. He was a bum, is what he was. What about Michael Clayton? Remember him? Had a stellar rookie season in Tampa Bay. And what did he do thereafter? Nothing. What about Early Doucette? I could go on and on and on. But I'm not. Just know that I don't think very highly of LSU receivers until this year. And I've been watching these guys for the last couple of years, but this year in particular, 2 LSU receivers really stepped up. Odell Beckham Jr., ODB, and this guy here, Jarvis Landry. I mean, they're different from the other LSU receivers. I mean, they make plays. They're tough. They run routes crisply and cleanly. They catch the ball. They pluck it out of the air. Both of them have maybe the strongest hands in the draft. And I'm enamored with both of those guys. So one goes in the first round at 12 to the Giants. One goes at 63, basically the third round, late second, basically third round. And what's the difference between the two? The difference is 40 time. And that's the only difference between the two. If you look at production, Jarvis Landry actually had better production than ODB. But ODB is an explosive athlete that snatches the football out of the air and makes things happen, not only on offense, but on special teams as well. You get extra added value there. So he went in the first round. Jarvis Landry struggled at the combine, hurt himself while running a 40 that wasn't that impressive to begin with. Goes to the pro day, doesn't better that time. He's a 4.7 guy. What can we say? 4.7, 740 type of guy. So that really knocked him down a few pegs in many teams' minds. But that doesn't take away from the production. It doesn't take away from the toughness. It doesn't take away from all the intangibles that this guy brings to the table. His hands are top notch. His route running is among the best in this draft. The guy's hands, what can I say? What more can I say? He's got the entire package except for speed. He's not taking the top off of anybody's defense. He blocks like nobody's business. He's the second coming of Hines Ward in the run blocking department, I should say. And so he's got all the skills you're looking for. He's just not fast. And so everybody wants to beat him up for that, but I'm here to tell you, forget about the speed. He'll bring everything else to the table, everything else to the party. Okay, so he's not bringing silverware. He's not bringing the plastic spoons and forks and all that stuff. Not bringing plates, but he'll bring the chips. He'll bring the drinks. He'll bring some food to snack on, some pizza. He'll bring all of the wings. He'll do all of that stuff. He's just not bringing any silverware. He's not bringing any forks or napkins. You can do without that stuff. Okay, I'll eat the pizza in my hand. I'll eat the wings in my hand. And if I need to wipe my hand on something, I'll wipe it on your shirt. So he has all of the skills and tools necessary to be a force in this league. Just doesn't have speed. Speed! Doesn't have it. But I'm willing to look past it if you are, and I am, so you should be too. And so you've got yourself a steal in the second round, 63rd overall selection, wide receiver out of LSU. Jarvis Landry brings it all to the table. And on every Sunday when he steps on the field, you're getting 110% out of that guy, no matter where you line him up, out wide, in the slot, in the backfield, wherever he is, you're getting maximum effort. He's ear-holding linebackers. He's making acrobatic catches. He's making the tough catches over the middle. When guys don't want to do the dirty work, ask Jarvis Landry to do it. He'll do it gladly with a smile on his face, go over the middle, run that dig route in traffic, come down with the football. He's tough as nails. He catches the football. He blocks in the running game. Jarvis Landry, for me, is an absolute, no doubted, you can put it on the board. Yeah. Home run in the second round. Pick 63 overall. Dolphins got themselves a steal. Not only is he a home run because of his production at LSU, what he brings to the table into the National Football League, but where you got him. That is great value for a guy that has first round talent, but just doesn't run really fast. And so that's a great pickup for the Dolphins. You ask yourself, why do we need him? You can always use a receiver that can make plays and do everything you need him to do on the field. Hey, you got Mike Wallace. You want speed? Tell Mike Wallace to run the 9 route. He'll do everything else on the field for you. So you go to the third round, 67th overall selection, tackle out of North Dakota State. Billy Turner is an interesting story. And here's a guy out of North Dakota State. 3 straight division titles at North Dakota State. The guy's a winner. And he's one of the catalysts for this team winning as much and as often as they do. He's as solid as it gets in Division II football. I mean, he clears the way for the running game. He protects his quarterback. And I find him fascinating. I just really do. He's actually got, and if you want some backstory on this guy, you want to know where he comes from and his journey to the NFL throughout the combine and the draft, he's got a series right now on YouTube called Driven. Type it in, look it up. It is fascinating television. I was absolutely taken aback by that series. I can't get enough of it. I can't wait till the next installment comes out. Right now, I think there's 5 installments. I'm waiting on number 6. And it's really good theater. Check it out. It'll give you some insight into who Billy Turner is as a football player, as a person, and what kind of guy you're getting in Miami. And I'm fascinated by his story. I'm fascinated by him as a player. You watch the tape, and they upset in Manhattan. They beat Kansas State. Went into Kansas State and stole a W from them. This is not a slouch of a football team. They don't win for no reason. They're winners because they know how to get it done. They've been playing together for a long time. And Billy Turner, he was dominant in that football game. He had one holding penalty. That was it. His quarterback wasn't touched, at least not on his side. The running game, he's powerful in the running game. He can get to that next level. He's a big, big man. But even at his size, he can move. I thought he moved a lot better than I was expecting him to, because when I look at him, I'm like, hey, this is a big guy. He's probably going to be one of those lumbering, laboring big guys. But he can get to that second level, and he's mean. He's got a nasty streak. He's got a disposition about him where he's finishing off runs and he's pushing guys around at the end of plays. I love that stuff. I mean, that stuff really lends itself to you endearing yourself to other players, and he'll never give up on a play. I think he brings a lot of skills to the table. And for anyone that questioned, could he play against elite talent? They beat K-State and he dominated in that game. And so I think, is he a day one starter? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you went out and got Jawan James, presumably going to be the starter on the right side. You went out in free agency and got yourself a left tackle in Albert. So, no, he's not starting at tackle. Do the Dolphins have a plan for him at guard maybe? That could be the case. If not, he's a guy that could provide swing tackle ability for you, left or right side, at the next level. And you always got to have guys you trust. You never know when someone's going to go down with an injury. You need someone to step in. He's going to be a guy you develop. And I think if he gets with the right coaching staff, if you've got the right offensive line coach, and they can develop talent, because I think he's got all the tools necessary to really become a good football player in the National Football League. I think you got yourself a really good football player in the third round, 67th overall, tackle out of North Dakota State, Billy Turner. For me, this is a triple. I really like this guy. I like his intangibles. I like what he brings to the table. He's got NFL pedigree. His dad played in the league. His cousin is linebacker Brian Keel. So he's got NFL pedigree. He knows what it takes to be in this league and what it's going to take to stay around. He's hungry. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I like this guy. I like him a lot. And so it's another triple for the Dolphins in the third round in Billy Turner, tackle out of North Dakota State. So you move on to the fourth round, 125th overall selection, cornerback out of Liberty, Walt Aikens. And this is an interesting guy here, 6'1", about 200 pounds, runs well, and he's a part of this new movement at the cornerback position in the National Football League, where you like longer corners that are athletic, that can keep up with these receivers and provide you with length as well. Because, again, what I'm finding out is length wins in this league. Length at the offensive tackle positions, length at the cornerback position, length at receiver. It wins a lot of times. If you're long, you can recover if you're a cornerback and you're beaten. Say you're behind by a step, ball slightly underthrown. Maybe it's on the money and you're only a step. You're not hip to hip with the receiver. He's got a step on you. Ball is put in a really good spot, but they still are able to recover because they have long arms. And so there's something to be said about longer corners right now in the National Football League. They're in vogue. They're what's in. And Walt Aikens is a guy that is extremely long at the cornerback position, coming in at 6'1", longer limbs. And it's funny because everybody hears Liberty University and they're thinking, oh, he's from a small school. And so, you know, he didn't play against a lot of big competition. And he's a guy that's an underdog and this, that, and the other. But you got to learn the background of some of these players. Some of these guys get into some trouble. They get kicked out of a university or they get kicked off of a team. They transfer, much like Janoris Jenkins. If you didn't know who he was, he ends up going to some small school like North Alabama or something. I don't remember where he went, but it was a small, obscure school. Yet he was still a first-round pick because the guy was at Florida and had to transfer because he got into trouble. And so you look at Walt Aikens, and coming from Liberty, he was a fighting Illini. He was at Illinois at first, and he had to transfer because he got into some trouble, got into it with Ron Zook, and Ron Zook kicked him off the team. So he ended up transferring to Liberty, and the rest is history. So this guy was recruited by some big-time colleges and ended up going to Illinois, and so he's not unfamiliar in terms of playing against some upper echelon talent, and he's a guy that was highly sought after in high school. So he's got some background here, and the guy can play football. And I like his ability to come up and tackle. I like the fact that he's not afraid to go and try to make a play on the football. I like that he's not afraid to challenge receivers with his length and come up and get into some press coverage. Again, he's got some technique flaws that he's going to have to work on. And again, when you get these longer corners that are a little bit taller, they kind of struggle transitioning in and out of breaks, flipping their hips, turning and going, stopping and starting. And so these are some of the things that he's got to clean up on his end. But all in all, he makes plays on the football. He's not afraid to tackle. He'll come up and support in the run game. And I like the fact that he's big, he's fast, he's physical. He's got all the tools you need. Look, as long as you're giving me something to work with, that's the biggest issue. If you're not good or you don't have all of the skill set necessary to be a good player, then I'm wasting my time. You give me a guy that has everything necessary to be great, but he's just not there yet. He needs some schooling, some coaching, some fine-tuning, some polishing. Hey, send him my way. And if I'm a coach, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Send me the guy with all the raw talent and God-given ability in the world and allow me to coach him up. If I can't get the most out of him, then fine. Then it's my fault. But give me the guy with all the raw abilities and tools to get it done. And that's all I can ask for. Give me a blank canvas in all of the colors in the full spectrum and allow me to paint this Picasso, this masterpiece. And that's what Walt Aikens is for me. A guy with all the ability in the world, all the tools necessary. He has great size, has the speed to match, has the ability to come up and be physical and support in the run game, has all the things you're looking for, can make plays on the football. He just needs to be coached up. Mentally, he has to make sure that he stays focused, isn't off task, isn't getting into anything that doesn't involve him. And on the field, he just has to take to coaching and use what he learns on the practice field, on the game field. And if he can make that transition from college football to the pros and take that coaching and all of it in stride and bring it all together and have it culminate on Sundays, you got yourself a good football player. In the 4th round, 125th pick, cornerback out of Liberty, Walt Aikens. For me, he's a double. And I just feel like there's a lot here to like. But there's so much more that I feel like can be tapped into. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I feel like cornerback as well as quarterback are your two hardest positions to make the transition to in the National Football League. And so him already being at a position that's tough to make the adjustment in the transition from college to the pros, you add to the fact that he's got some things to work on. There's a reason why he was a 4th round pick. You know, that didn't happen by happenstance or by chance. He's there for a reason. And so he's got some things to clean up, but if he does it and he does it in the right manner, I think he could easily get on the field for the Dolphins in a year or two and start really proving to provide dividends for this football team. You move on to the 5th round, 155th overall selection, tight end out of Georgia, Arthur Lynch. Here's a straight inline blocking tight end. But I was amazed that when I turned on the tape, they split him out a lot at Georgia. I mean, he's not athletically gifted. He's not a guy that's going to blow you away with any of his measurables. He's a considerable sized tight end, about 6'4", 6'5", about 260 pounds or so. He's a big guy, but he moves well for his size. But again, he's not a 4'5", 4'6", 4'7" type 40 guy. All right, but what he will do is he'll block, and he will compete in the blocking game. He's not a finished product as a blocker either, okay? I put on some of the games, and one in particular, the bowl game from last year, Georgia taking on Nebraska, and there were some plays where he was overwhelmed in the run game. I was a little turned off by his inability to seal the block inside and allow the running back to have a lane. Guys were stacking him, shedding him, discarding him, and getting to the ball carrier. and pushing him back into the backfield and disrupting plays. And so he's got some things to work on, and he needs to get stronger in the run game. But he's willing to block. He wants to block, and he wants to be better. So I don't have a problem with that. He can learn and fine-tune his blocking and get better at that. I was surprised that he caught the ball as well as he did and that he was able to create separation. But there is a caveat. He dropped the football in that game twice in crucial situations. You could argue he lost the game for his team. I mean, late in the ball game, yeah, it was wet. It was not ideal conditions. Catch the football. Late in the game, they're down inside the red zone. 3rd and, let's call it 5. They throw him a 6-yard pass open, and he drops the football. Inexcusable, unforgivable. Okay? They get one more shot, though. That was deep in the 4th quarter, late in the ball game. You're down by about 4, so you got to have it, and he drops the football. So they end up having to turn the football over on downs. They get it back, and they get one more opportunity. They get back down the field. They get back into the red zone, and they come back to Lynch on 4th down. And this is about 4th and 4. He runs a route. And the coverage is a little tighter than it was on the last possession when he just flat out dropped the football. But again, he drops the ball, hits him right in the hands. He does not come up with the catch, and his team loses the game. And that's something that I have a problem with, okay? I need you to catch the football when you're open, when you have a chance to help your football team. When I have to have it, 4th quarter, game on the line, 4th down, and I come to you, catch the football. And that kind of perturbed me with Mr. Lynch, is the fact that you got to catch the football. You have to catch the football. You're already not the greatest blocker in the world. And so I need you to catch the football when you are open. But again, nobody's going to confuse this guy with Vernon Davis. Nobody's going to confuse this guy with Eric Ebron. Nobody's going to confuse him with Jimmy Graham or Rob Gronkowski. He's going to come in. He's going to get better at blocking in the run game. He's going to catch the occasional pass. So you want me to give you your comp here of who he's going to be in the National Football League? I want you, as Dolphin fans, to think Anthony Fasano. In 2 years, Arthur Lynch is your new Anthony Fasano. And so, in the 5th round, 155th overall selection, tight end out of Georgia, Arthur Lynch, for me, it's a solid double. Not flashy, doesn't do anything great, does everything well, can run block, can pass block, can catch it out of the backfield. They had him all over the place. I mean, he was playing H-back, he was playing tight, he was playing split out. So, I mean, they had him everywhere. You know what I like to say. Pam Mon, proficient at many, master of none. So, he's all over the place. They split him out. He's tight to the line. He's in the backfield playing H-back. He's good at all of them, great at none of them. So you move on to the next 5th round pick for the Dolphins, 171st overall, linebacker out of Montana, Jordan Tripp. Let me give you a little bit of background on this guy. I was salivating after watching this guy perform at the Combine. Of all the players that came out of the Combine, I was most anxious to watch tape on this guy. I was like, man, I think of all the players at the Combine, he might have been the most athletically surprising of all of them. When I looked at him, I said, okay, white guy, running, linebacker position. Let's see what he's got. And he came up and he blazed a 40. He was moving well in the positional drills. He was catching the football out of the air. I mean, he looked the part of a really good linebacker prospect. I mean, he was a pace setter in many of the categories. The 3-cone shuttle, all of the drills that they were doing on the field. I mean, he was among the best at all of them. I mean, when I watched Jordan Tripp, I was impressed. I left the Combine more impressed with him than any other player in the entire day that he competed. And I said, man, I got to go watch tape of this guy, man. Who is this guy from Montana? And I was so disappointed when I went and watched the tape because it did not match up to what I saw at the Combine. I saw a guy that seemed like he was sure of himself, that was instinctive, that had athleticism oozing out of every nook and cranny. We're talking about a guy that's well put together. We're talking 6'3", 6'4", about 240 pounds, runs well. We're talking a guy that ran in the 4.6s. We're talking about a guy that ran the 3-cone, I think 3.88 or something like that. It was ridiculously fast. I mean, the guy, he was just lighting it up at the combine. I mean, movement skills off the chart. I mean, changing direction, flow, fluidity in the hips. Everything looked good. I mean, ball skills. I went away from saying, wow, this guy looks the part. So I put the tape on, and it couldn't have been more further from the truth. I mean, now look, the guy was productive. He was the best player on their team. But the thing that I think didn't match up for me was his indecisiveness. It seemed like he was mechanical on the field. Like, he was so reactionary, but he wasn't proactive at anything. And I don't like guys that are reactionary. Don't be reactive, be proactive. See a play, trust your eyes, go and attack. And he's one of those guys that just sits there and he waits and he waits and he waits, and then he diagnoses a play, and then he tries to read and react, and it's too late. Things have already happened, and he's got the ability. The combine showed me that he's got the athletic gifts to blow plays up, to be in the backfield, to make things happen and stop things before they start. He's got the ability to do that. But when you watch the tape, he's just standing there and waiting and waiting. And I'm like, dude, go. Give you an example. Quarterback gets flushed out to his side. He's in zone coverage, all right? And a running back comes out of the backfield and runs a simple out route to his side. Just a simple arrow route. Sort of just up the field, then out directly in front of his face. And he sees the back cross his face, and the quarterback is rolling out, and the defense is bearing down on the quarterback, right? So obviously the quarterback is running out of options at this point. The running back flashing in his face is really his only option other than throwing it out of bounds. And so if you're Jordan Tripp, you see that the running back has crossed your face and he is trying to make himself available to the quarterback, and the defense is bearing down on the quarterback as he's being flushed out to your side. You know the quarterback doesn't have a lot of options, so take away the one option that is available to him. Now, if you want to bait him into throwing it and then pick it off, hey, knock yourself out. But don't let him complete the pass. And the only option that he has is that running back in front of you. Don't let him complete that pass. Don't stand there and allow the running back to create 2 or 3 yards of separation between the two of you. Follow him, shade him, and if he throws it to him, pick it off. And if you're there and you scare him away, he's going to have to chuck it out of bounds. But don't just stand there. You see it happening. So don't be reactionary. Be proactive. Stop the play from happening or pick the pass off. He stands there. He waits. The running back creates separation. The quarterback gets an outlet. He throws it to him. They pick up 7 yards on the play. And it's minuscule. But again, that was 2nd and 9. You get 7 yards. It turns into 3rd and 2. If you take that away, it's 3rd and 9. You're probably getting off the field if you can get a stop. So those are the little things that frustrate me with Jordan Tripp. He just stands there. He's watching. It takes him too long to process what's going on. Trust your eyes, read and react, and go much faster than slow. He's just standing there, and I'm like, go, Jordan. You're athletic enough to go make that play. Why are you still standing here waiting? When he blitzes, it's like he's not picking the right gap. It's not fluid. His blitzes, he can blitz better than that. And so I just got a lot of issues with him, but they're all fixable. They're all correctable. So Jordan Tripp, linebacker out of Montana, in the 5th round, 171st overall selection, is a double. I still like this guy because the athleticism is there. There's a lot to like here. He's just got to be coached up, and he's got to go. I mean, he's got to see it and go and react and make a play and stop standing there and waiting for the action to come to him. And so I like him a lot. I think that he's going to help you on special teams, and in time, he could even start potentially for you. I mean, what's the difference between him and Cole Amisi? The guy's more athletic than Cole Amisi, so I see potential there in Jordan Tripp. he's got to go. He's got to see it and go, man. Go. Go. 6th round, 190th overall selection, wide receiver out of Coastal Carolina, Matt Hazel. For me, it was funny because I was watching Jordan Tripp, and they were at home in a playoff game against Matt Hazel and the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. And they got dominated at home, did Montana, by a team that wasn't supposed to beat them. They were the underdogs. And Matt Hazel and company came in and they dominated. And here's a guy that they threw the ball to an awful lot at Coastal Carolina. He's more of a slot guy. At 6'1", about 200 pounds or so. He's more like a $195. Solid size. He's a lanky guy. But I think where he'll make his hay in the National Football League is in the slot. And, you know, a lot of times we see slot guys and they're 5'10", they're 5'9", 5'11". Shorter guys, quicker in and out of their breaks. Matt Hazel is somewhat like that, but, I mean, he's a little bit bigger. I just told you he's 6'1", so he's a little bit bigger, but he still has a lot of quickness. He's quicker than fast. He's a 4.5 40 guy, so he's not blazing fast, but he's quicker than fast. They threw a lot of bubble screens to him at Coastal Carolina, got him the football out in space quickly. A lot of quick game to Matt Hazel. And so I think the Dolphins see him as a guy that can come in and take the spot of a Devon Best, a guy that worked the slot for you beautifully in Miami for a few years, and he's moved on. And they think that, hey, we need a guy to come in and work the slot and give us what we were missing a season ago. A guy that will go in and do all the dirty work in the middle of the field, win some one-on-one matchups. And so they see Matt Hazel as a guy that potentially could do that. I'm not sure if I'm quite buying it yet, but watching him on tape, he has some ability. I think he can make the transition to the National Football League. I think a lot of the things that the Dolphins are going to ask him to do, he was already doing at Coastal Carolina, which is catch the football out in space, get the ball in his hands quickly, and allow him to make guys miss out in space and get up the field and get a lot of yards after catch. And so I think Matt Hazel is going to be a solid addition on this football team. How fast will he be able to assimilate to the speed of the NFL? How fast will he be able to come in, work the slot, and show his value on this football team? I don't know the answer to that because the Dolphins, believe it or not, have some depth on this team at receiver. And so how fast is he going to be able to come in and make his presence felt? How fast is he going to be able to come in and show the coaching staff that he deserves some meaningful snaps? How long is it going to take him to prove that he belongs as a 6th round pick on this Miami Dolphins roster and that he belongs getting on the field and getting the opportunity to help this football team win games? I can't answer that. Will he make this team? I do not know, but I know he brings a skill set to the table that I don't think the Dolphins currently have on their team, and that's the ability for one of these guys to work the slot, to get the football in their hands and make some plays. That's a specialized duty, okay? I feel like you can get the ball in the hands of a guy like Brian Hartline. You can get the ball in the hands of a guy like Mike Wallace, but they're not slot guys. They work on the outsides. I'm not saying that Brian Hartline can't work in the slot because he has worked in the slot before, and I think he could do it if need be, but he's on the outsides now. He's working outside and winning matchups out there, and so you need someone to get the work done inside in the slot. And Matt Hazel could be that guy for you moving forward. We'll see. But in the 6th round, 190th pick overall, wide receiver out of Coastal Carolina, Matt Hazel for me is a single. I said all of that, and I'm giving him a single grade just because I feel like there's a lot of depth on this Dolphins team. You drafted Jarvis Landry earlier in the draft. Brandon Gibson is still on this team. Mike Wallace is on this team. You still have, and I just mentioned, Brian Hartline. I feel like there are a lot of options at receiver on this football team. I don't know what you consider Thigpen to be. I know he's a special teams ace for you, especially in the returns game, but he's a guy that you like to throw the football to as well. And so I just don't know how much space there is for Matt Hazel, and I don't know if he can carve out that niche. If he can carve out that niche and prove to the coaching staff that, hey, I'm the slot guy that you're looking for. You've been missing that presence in the slot since You lost Devon Best and traded him away to Cleveland. I'm here to replace that guy. I'm your man for the job. If he can carve out that niche for himself, he'll get on the field, he'll make this team, and he'll prove to be better than a single. But right now, I just need proof. And so, it is a single in the 6th round, wide receiver Matt Hazel out of Coastal Carolina. And so, you wrap up the draft in the 7th round, 234th pick, defensive end out of Marist, Terrence Fede. And Terrence Fede is a unique player, not because of his build or his body type or what he was able to do at Marist, but because he went to Marist and he got drafted in the NFL. He is the first player in NFL history to be drafted out of Marist. So, good for Terrence Fede, good for the University of Marist. And now let's talk about Terrence Fede and what he can bring to the table for the Miami Dolphins. You look at this guy of 6'4", 6'3" and some change, 6'4", closer to 6'4". Let's round it up to 6'4". About 275 pounds or so. So good size. Watching him on tape, it was funny because you would have thought that he was coming into the league to make the transition as a 3-4 outside linebacker because he was always standing up. Or maybe he was going to make the transition to a 3-4 defensive end, a 5 technique. But Dolphins play a 4-3 defense. And I'm thinking that's what they're going to ask him to do. And I think he's got some ability. I watched him. He's spinning. I like the fact that he spins. A lot of guys don't spin. And he didn't just spin to get to the quarterback. He was spinning out of trouble to get to the running back when they were coming to his side. And so he's got that in the arsenal. Sometimes he can be out of control with the spin and spin in place. Nothing worse than a guy that's a spinning top, meaning you're spinning in place. Don't spin in place. You spin to get around a guy. You spin to be effective. You don't spin to spin in place. So sometimes he can get out of control with that, but it's in the repertoire. I like that. He also has a rip move, hard outside, back inside, so I like that. And then he can go around the edge. So there's a lot to like there because he's got an assortment of moves. The level of competition is one that concerns you, but again, stand out. Look, I don't care that you went to Marist. I don't care. Dominate the competition. Okay, fine. You're at Marist. Dominate the competition. When I put the tape on, when I put the game on, I need to know exactly who you are without anybody telling me what number you are, without anybody showing me and identifying you. I should be able to look at the tape and I should be able to tell who you are. And I put the tape on and I knew exactly who I was looking at, who I should have been looking for. He was dominating. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a guy that went out and got 13 sacks. I want to see a guy that had over 30 career sacks at Marist. I want to see a guy dominating the competition. That's what he did. And so I can always appreciate a guy that goes to a smaller school and dominates. If you're better and you feel like you're worthy of being in the NFL, you're supposed to dominate inferior competition. And that's what he did. So he checked the box for me. That's the only prerequisite I have of a guy that goes to a small school. I don't want to hear that he played against lesser competition. If he did, dominate. At some positions, it matters. You know, if you're at corner and you don't play against any elite receivers, hard for me to determine if you're a really good corner or not. But if you're a defensive end and you're playing against inferior competition, guess what? You're supposed to dominate. You're supposed to rack up a high total of sacks. I can tell if you're good or not if you dominate the competition. If you're a safety, hard for me to tell if you're good or not if you're not playing against elite competition. I still want you to go out there and blast guys and pick off passes, but it's a little bit harder for me to translate what you do to what you'll be able to do at the next level if you're not playing against good enough competition. But at defensive line and offensive line, I can tell if you're a translator or not if you're dominating the competition. And so Terrence Fede, he dominated. He showed the ability to make some things happen in the passing game. I think he could be a little bit better in the run game, but he flashed in the run game as well. And so I think all the tools, and I said this earlier about Walt Aikens, all the tools that are necessary are present. So as long as you give me the working tools and you give me all the things that I need to make a good football player, I think that this guy's got a shot to make this roster. I think this guy's got a shot to not only make this roster, but become a fixture in the Dolphins' rotation at defensive end. I just feel like this guy has the ability. He's got the size. I like his size. I mean, 6'4", 275. That's good size, man. I mean, I don't know if his size is one that is sculpted and ready to go at the National Football League level, but it's there. That means he's filling out his frame. So I like that. And if they can get him to be more stout at the point of attack in the run game and not just be a guy that's going and hunting the quarterback, you could have yourself here something in the 7th round. And so off of potential alone, Terrence Fede is a double for me. 7th round, out of Marist, double. Don't ask me why. I just like the potential here. I like the size. I like the things that he brings to the table. I like his measurables. I like the production at school. I think he's got something that will open the eyes of the Dolphins staff. They obviously know who he is, feel good about him, enough to draft him in the 7th round. So he's got a shot. Can he crack this roster? I don't know. But I think he's got all the things you're looking for in a player that you want to keep around and work with. He may not crack the 53-man roster, but maybe he gets on the practice squad. Maybe 2 years down the road, you're hearing Terrence Fede's name, and he's making plays as a defensive end for the Miami Dolphins. So that's the entirety of the Dolphins draft. You've got 8 picks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you've got a triple, a home run, and a triple to start out. Juwan James for me is a triple. Jarvis Landry, your lone home run pick in this draft. Billy Turner, I am fascinated by this guy. He's a triple. Walt Aikens, I think there's a lot of potential there, but there's still a question mark or two that has me thinking that I don't know about this guy, but all the skill set necessary, all the tools necessary is present. He's a double. Arthur Lynch, a blocking tight end that needs to work on his craft, but that can also catch the football. I think he's going to be your Anthony Fasano replacement down the road. He's a double. Jordan Tripp, all the athletic gifts necessary to be a starter in this league, but the tape doesn't match up the athleticism that he displayed at the combine. And so I've got questions. Does he have all the answers? Not sure. But because the athleticism is there, and we know it to be there, he's a double. You look at Matt Hazel, receiver out of Coastal Carolina. He could be a really good slot receiver, or he could not make this team. To me, there's no in between. He's an extremes guy. Either he's going to wow the coaching staff, carve out a niche for himself, and make this roster, or he's just not. And so because of that, he's a single. And Terrence Fede, defensive end out of Marist, I like his measurables. I like his production at school. I like his body type. I like what he brings to the table. Needs work. He's a 7th round pick. He's a long shot. But I like all of the skills that he brings. He's a double to round out your draft. So 8 picks, triple, home run, that's 7. Another triple, that's 10. A double, 12. Another double, 14. Another double, 16. Another double, 18. And finally, a single, that's 19 divided by 8. It's a solid double for the Miami Dolphins in the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. So if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. I thank you for joining me here on the 2014 Draft Wrap-Up of the Miami Dolphins. We'll continue to break down all of the teams in the National Football League here in the lab room in the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Who's got next?
Draft Zone.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.